Hello and welcome back to Gapeys Garden. We're here in the fig forest. I've got over 40 fig trees in pots now, which is growing every single year. I thought it'd be time to do a fig update because I haven't done one in quite a while. We've got 2 figs in ground that survived the winter barely. It was a pretty bad winter for us here in the Pacific Northwest. It was mild for the most part, but we had 1 week where it was just really cold. That took out a lot of things. The fig trees here in pots were safe in my shed, so those were all doing pretty good. Some are doing better than others though, and we'll go over those and take a look at not every single one, but at least the ones that are doing really good and the ones that are producing some Breba so far this year, and then also look at a few that aren't doing so well. All right, let's start by taking a peek at the greenhouse. I've got a few figs still in here. I had all 40 some of my figs in here at one point, but I took them out recently so that I could get my peppers planted. It was finally time to get those in the ground. But we've got a couple of fig cuttings that I started last year are here still in the greenhouse. We've got this fig cutting that I rooted this year. This one is called St. Martin. And this is the only one that survived. I had pretty terrible luck with fig cuttings this year. I only started 3 varieties, and so far this is the only one that has survived. Normally I pluck off the figs that grow on fig cuttings, but I decided what the heck, I would just leave it on, and it seemed to actually start doing better after it started growing that figlet. But the roots are doing okay. They are starting to turn a little bit brown. It's been kind of really cold and wet here, and I don't think it likes that temperature. So I decided to move it here in the greenhouse, so hopefully it will do better with a little bit more warmth. And then this is here one of the ones that I've got a fig on it. It's Vincenzo. So this is a Breba fig that formed on the growth from last year. I'm not sure if it's going to mature or not. This is a pretty young fig tree that I started last year, I believe, but it's growing pretty well, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and leave it in the greenhouse. I don't really want to repot it into a bigger pot at this point because it might cause issues with that fig that's on there. Once the fig matures, or if it matures, then I may consider potting it up into a bigger container. But this is I think about a 2-gallon container that it's in right now. Before I show some of the other ones in the greenhouse, I wanted to show you the other one that I have out here that's producing some Breba. This one is the Vern's Brown Turkey, which was my most productive fig tree that I had last year, and it's now, I think, 3 years old, and it is putting out some really nice growth, and it's got 2 really good-sized Breba figs on there. There's one there, and then another one back here, so hopefully that matures and we get some tasty Breba figs off of that. I have another one here somewhere, but that one didn't produce any figs, only this one here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and keep both fig trees because that is a really great variety that is really productive and tasty. And I also learned that Vern's Brown Turkey isn't really a brown turkey fig at all. I'm not sure exactly why they called it that, but it is totally different than your normal brown turkey. Back here in the greenhouse, I wanted to take a look at a couple of them that are in here. This one is called Santa Cruz that I started last year, and I don't know what the deal is with this one, but some of the leaves look like they're getting chewed on by something, almost like slug damage, but I haven't seen any pests on it, and it just seems to be this one leaf here. The other leaves look pretty normal and not chewed up, except for maybe, I think this new leaf that's coming out it just actually popped off, which is probably fine because that leaf was looking not so great either. But all the other leaves on this is looking pretty good, so I'm not sure why this particular leaf is growing all funky like that. And then the other one I wanted to show you in the greenhouse is Rosalino. This was the very last fig to wake up in the greenhouse, and it's putting out all kinds of growth. And I think one of the reasons that it is taking longer is because you can see here it had some dieback here, and I'm not sure why, because it was in the insulated shed, so it didn't get super cold, but it did get some dieback, and I think that stunted or delayed the growth of the leaves. and it is putting out all kinds of new branches here, and I'll probably have to be pruning or snipping off some of those because I think that's too many branches for one little fig tree. I almost forgot about this one I still have in the greenhouse. I just got this one this past spring from a friend, and as you can see, it has not woken up yet at all. The tips are a little bit green still, so I'm not sure it's really dead, but it is just crazy that it hasn't woken up at all. And I think the problem with this one is that he stored it over winter in a not so great place. So it was outside, but it was on a shelf, so it wasn't on the ground. And he said every single one of his figs that he stored that way has not woken up, even though it looks or appears to be still alive because it's showing some green there, but it's just not waking up. Have you ever seen that? And I've had it in the greenhouse for a couple months now, so it should have woken up by now, I would think. Now, all these fig trees here on the right are ones that I either repotted or root pruned. And the ones that I root pruned are all these tall ones that are probably at least 4 or 5, maybe even older than that. And if you watched my updates last year, I had a lot of issues with some of my older trees. They just dropped all of their leaves in the middle of summer. And I think it was because they were really root bound and struggling to uptake water and nutrients. So those were the first ones that I repotted and root pruned, and I root pruned them pretty hard. Last year I did one root pruning and just used a saw to kind of saw off some of the roots, but this time I used a root hook, and which is mainly used for bonsai, I believe, but it works really well for loosening up the roots so that the root ball isn't so tight and can easily uptake nutrients and water more easily. So let's just take a look at some of the ones that I root pruned. So LSU Tiger, this one is a little bit newer. I think I also put that one into a bigger pot, and that one has got really big fat leaves and it's doing pretty good. And we've got Robert's Golden Rainbow, which is one of my favorite figs. It does look like it has a little bit of possible mosaic virus, or maybe that's mite damage, I'm not sure. But it's only on this, oh actually this is the Tacoma Violet. They're kind of pointed next to each other, but the Robert's Golden Rainbow here looks really good, but the Tacoma Violet here is seeing some of that leaf discoloration just on that branch. The other branches are looking really good, and we're putting out some new growth, and it looks like we've got some possible little figlets for main crop that we're starting to see come out there. Then another one that I root prune, this one is the Marseille Black VS. This is one of my tallest figs, and I don't see any main crop coming out on there, but we do have a little bit of new growth coming out. Actually, there might be some main crop possibly in that branch there. And then we've got Nero 600M. This was one of my favorite figs a few years ago. It seems to not be doing as well. Some of the leaves are curling a little bit, and I'm not sure why. That might be from the root pruning that I did. I did, like I mentioned, prune these pretty hard, so some of them may be struggling a little bit to recover from that. And then this one here is Burgessot Grease. I've got 2 of these figs, and this one seems to be doing a lot better than the other one. And then this last one that I root pruned is Brandon Street Unknown. This is the most recently root pruned one, and it is actually, this leaf is looking kind of weird like the one in the greenhouse. So I don't know if something is chomping on the leaves of that or what. Then I've got a couple pawpaws here that I need to get in ground in the front yard. Now these 3 here are the ones that I potted up into bigger containers. This one is the Black Greek Marius, which is a really nice fig, and it is also seeing a little bit of discoloration on a couple of those leaves, but it's putting out some nice new growth here. And then this one here is the Ischia Black that I started from a cutting last year, and it seems to be growing a little bit slowly. I'm not sure if that new growth is looking kind of dark on the stem and not green like a lot of the others, which is kind of weird. This one here is Old Yeller that I got from Ivy Organics giveaway a few years ago, and it is not, it's really very skinny, so it's not really getting a really thick stalk. I think this one did have a Breba fig on it earlier that ended up dropping, so we'll have to wait and see if it gets any main crop. But this one I think is 3 years old now. This one here was another one that was really late to wake up, and it is getting some growth here on the bottom. This is Stella, and I'm really considering getting rid of this tree because I've had it for several years and it has yet to produce a single fig. I think it might have had a little bit of dieback on the tip there. So honestly, I'm not sure if I'd even give this one away. It's just, I don't think worth it. So it may end up getting chipped. So one I'm probably most excited about this year that I'm hoping will produce some figs is the red Lebanese Baca Valley. It has definitely grown the most so far this year. So this is where it started growing this year, and it's gone all the way up to here. So definitely a quick grower. And I rooted this, I think it was, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but I potted that up into a large, I think 5-gallon container, which I normally don't do for that young of a cutting, but this thing was so vigorous last year that it just wanted to be potted up into a bigger container. I was looking around for some more that might have some main crop figs growing. It looks like there are some little nubs on this one. This is the Ronde Bordeaux. This is another one that is one of my older figs, and I'm considering root pruning this one as well. I think I might have root pruned this one last year with the saw, but I think it could use a more thorough root pruning like I did with some of the other trees this year. Another thing I've been doing this year is kind of taking a look more closely at the structure of some of my trees. That I kind of prefer the single stem with maybe a few branches at the top. But as you can see, this Figo Preto, it's got a Y way down at the bottom, and both of these branches are really pretty thick. But I haven't really had any figs ripen on this tree, so I am considering maybe cutting off or doing an air layer on this half of the tree and then cutting that off there, and then maybe doing a root pruning and repotting it so that this becomes the main stem here, and just kind of rotating it a little bit so that this is more centered and upright. So that's something I'm thinking about doing here in the near future. Now this one here is a Desert King, and I do plan on putting this in ground this year. So I had a DK in ground for a couple years, and every single winter it would die to the ground even when wrapped. So I'm giving it another try with a different Desert King tree, and hopefully this one does better. This one is actually growing 2 kind of trees in one. So we've got this stalk here, and we've got another pretty good sized stalk here that is growing, and I am probably going to split this tree in half. I'll have to decide which half to plant in ground and which to keep in a pot. But I will be doing that here probably in the next few weeks because I want to get that in the ground. It has put on quite a bit of growth at the top so far. It had 1 fig on it earlier in the spring, but it must have dropped because I don't see it on here anymore. All right, let's take a look now at the in-ground figs, which I have 2 of. This one here is the Olympian, and I don't think I even got any figs off of it last year. So I did wrap this with frost cloth and then a tarp, and I had a lot of dieback, so I haven't pruned this back yet, but as soon as I finish this video, I'll probably start pruning it back. Every single tip on this tree has died back at several inches. So this one here, we don't see any growth until here, which that's almost a foot of dieback there. This branch is even worse. So we don't see any growth coming out there until, looks like there might be something coming out there. But this branch here, there's no growth at all on this one. So this branch I might have to end up cutting off all the way down to the ground. But I'm really disappointed how these fared. I have talked to other fig growers in the area, and they said this was the worst winter that they've had since they started growing figs. So a lot of people lost a lot of figs this winter. Now our other in-ground fig is Laterula or honey fig, and it did a lot worse than the Olympian, believe it or not, but it's finally starting to put out some new growth. I did cut back some of the branches, but I still have a lot more to cut back. And there was a lot more dieback. I think this entire branch all the way down to the ground may be dead, as well as this big branch here. And we had a lot of algae or fungus or something growing on it, which has since come off, and I think the birds or something has been chewing on that damaged area where the moss was growing. But we had a lot of that on this branch as well. You can see how that bark is all chewed up. So I'm probably going to have to cut off this entire big branch here because I think it's pretty much dead, which is pretty disappointing. We did get quite a bit of figs on it for the main crop last year, and I'm hoping we'll be able to get some this year, but we had a lot of damage on this tree. I hope you enjoyed this update on how the figs are doing. I'm sure I'll be posting more of these this year. If you're a fig grower, let me know how your season is going and if you had a lot of damage this past winter. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.